Nights, inspired by Lenny Henry's mother's journey from Jamaica. New drama, Three Little Birds, starts at 8 o'clock. But now, it's the latest news.
Storm Babette has passed, but its effects are still being felt. 2 severe danger-to-life flood warnings remain as homes are evacuated and an 80-year-old woman is found dead.
1 minute's anger, 1 minute's upset. Could I have done more? Should other people do more? Should we have pushed it? Should I have tried to get in here that night?
Also this afternoon, more aid arrives in Gaza, but Israel says airstrikes will intensify as a ground invasion draws near. And footballers and fans pay tribute to Sir Bobby Charlton.
He's a legend for Manchester United and England, obviously, in the World Cup in '66, Champions League in '68, scored many goals for both club and country. Absolute legend of the game.
This is ITV News with Gamal Fahnbulleh.
Good afternoon. Storm Babette's heavy rains have died down, but its effects are still being felt across large parts of the UK today. Hundreds have been evacuated in Nottinghamshire as the River Idle continued to rise. 2 severe flood warnings remain in effect there, signifying a danger to life. And as residents elsewhere begin the massive clean-up operation, it was confirmed today that a 4th person has died as a result of the storm. Ellie Pitts reports from Derbyshire.
The families who live on this street in Chesterfield say it took less than 5 minutes for the River Rother to burst its banks and invade their homes. The rush of water so quick and powerful, the limited flood defences they had couldn't keep the water out. Maureen Gilbert is the 4th person to die following Storm Babette. Her son found her inside her flooded home yesterday morning.
1 minute's anger, 1 minute's upset. Could I have done more? Should other people do more? Should we have pushed it? Should I have tried to get in here that night? I don't know. I have no idea.
There are still nearly 300 flood warnings and alerts across the UK, including 2 indicating a danger to life covering Retford in Nottinghamshire, where 500 homes have been urged to evacuate. In Aberdeenshire, the search for a man trapped in his vehicle continues.
So this is a big flood. It's bigger than the 2019 floods, which people probably remember because it's quite recent. It's similar and probably even greater than the 2007 floods.
Back in Chesterfield, Anne Squires has lived on Tapton Terrace since she was 13 years old and was flooded in 2007. And this time it feels worse. And this, yeah, we're walking through your garden right now.
Yeah.
What goes through your mind when you come back into your house now, Anne?
Heartache with everything that's gone. The mess. The smell. I don't think it's 100% settled in your head what's gone off and what you've lost.
One of the residents here organised these pumps to remove the flood water so the much-needed clear-out could get underway. But it will be months before their homes look like they did before Storm Babette. Ellie Pitt, ITV News, Chesterfield.
17 more humanitarian aid trucks are reported to be entering Gaza from Egypt today. They follow an initial 20 lorries yesterday. But even as aid starts to trickle in, Israeli airstrikes continue to intensify. Israel is determined to root out Hamas militants, but the authorities in Gaza say it is the civilian population that continues to pay the price. Shejar Karia has the latest.
Each new day in Gaza brings more death, more grief and more unbearable loss. They are all gone, she cries. My mother, father and brothers are all gone. My sister and I are left alone. Also among the dead, 12 members of the same family, in a war that has seen so many innocent victims on both sides. As Israel vowed to intensify airstrikes on Gaza, warning Palestinians still in the north to flee south ahead of a planned ground invasion. While Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu issued this warning to Hezbollah, Lebanon's most powerful military force, if it enters the war. Saying it will make the mistake of its life and that Israel will cripple it with a force it cannot even imagine. And it's not just Gaza being hit. Israel carried out a rare airstrike in the West Bank, hitting the Al-Aqsa mosque Israel said was being used by Hamas as a terrorist compound. The Israeli Defense Forces saying it identified and eliminated a terrorist cell that it called a ticking bomb that was planning to carry out a murderous attack within the territory of the State of Israel. And there are signs that more aid might reach Gaza today. Meanwhile, it appears 6 fuel trucks urgently needed to power generators in hospitals did enter for the first time since the conflict began. Sejal Karia, ITV News.
Well, there have been intense diplomatic efforts over the past 2 weeks to prevent the crisis from escalating to the wider region, but the risks remain significant. Our correspondent Emma Murphy is in Lebanon. And Emma, the world is watching the Iran-backed Hezbollah militia there very closely.
Yes, indeed, and they're based here in Lebanon, and that's why there is so much focus on that border between Lebanon and Israel. In the last few minutes, the US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has been speaking, and he was asked directly about American concerns with regard to an escalation of this conflict, and he was very straight about it. Not only did they fear an escalation, they were pretty much at the point now where they expected one. And certainly we've seen some movement towards that on the ground in various parts of this region over the last few days. And also we've had a visit to the Israeli northern border from Prime Minister Netanyahu, where he's been meeting with troops who are there involved in continual skirmishes with Hezbollah fighters on the other side. And his message was extremely straightforward to those who chose to listen, that if this was to become another front, if that border was to become a more active war zone, if that spate of attacks from Hezbollah went further into Israel, the response would be immediate and incredibly significant. Now, of course, we've heard so much over the past few days about people warning of escalation, warning about the dangers, both sides trying to head each other off with language. The worry is when the language stops and the action starts.
Emma in Beirut, thank you. A government minister has questioned the actions of the Metropolitan Police at a pro-Palestinian rally this weekend. The Met said no offences were committed by a man who chanted the word jihad at the protest. But the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, said he found that surprising. Our political reporter, Lewis Warner, is here. And Lewis, what are the minister's concerns?
Well, his concerns, he said, not about the protests, but about some of the individuals and the comments made. Of course, he says everybody has the right to have their voice heard. Now, thousands took to the streets, of course, as part of the march organised by the Palestine Solidarity Campaign yesterday. Of course, many of these people are fearing for their friends and family in Gaza ahead of that expected ground invasion. But at a smaller protest organised by the group Hizb ut-Tahrir, a man was filmed chanting jihad, jihad. Now, the Met Police says specialist language officers were involved and assessed that video, but, quote, did not identify any offences arising from it. Now, the Met also says that it sought the advice of the Crown Prosecution Service, who they say came to the same conclusion as them. But today, as you say, the Immigration Minister, Robert Jenrick, told me that he was surprised by the Met's response and said the government would raise it with the force as an issue.
Shouting jihad on the streets of the UK in the context that we saw yesterday was an incitement to violence. That is wrong and it must not happen. And there should be a bipartisan consensus in this country that shouting jihad must never happen on our streets.
Are you concerned that the Met Police got this wrong then?
Well, I was surprised by the analysis of the Metropolitan Police, and that's something that we will be raising with them.
And the Met Police, of course, points out that the word jihad has a number of meanings, but it does accept for most people in the UK, it's perhaps most commonly associated with terrorism. I think with the real prospect that this conflict is only going to get worse, and ministers are really now starting to think about how the reaction from that conflict over in the Middle East is going to play out here in the streets of the UK.
Yeah, OK, Lewis, thank you. And this afternoon, there is another rally taking place in central London, this one in memory of the 1,400 Israeli victims of the Hamas terror attacks and the more than 200 hostages now thought to be held in Gaza. Vincent Macavini is there for us this afternoon. And Vincent, just tell us what is happening where you are.
Well, thousands have gathered here in Trafalgar Square to remember those 1,400 people who were killed in Israel 2 weeks ago in that surprise Hamas attacks. They're also wanting to draw attention to those taken hostage. Last night, the Israeli Defense Ministry said they believe that was 212, and we've been hearing very moving testimony from some of their family members who have spoken about the experience that they have had over the past 2 weeks. Now, Jewish leaders are speaking. Michael Gove is representing the government. Prayers have been said, and there will be a moment of silence and also the reading of all of the hostage names that are known in a few minutes' time here. Now, earlier on, I spoke to Claudia Mendoza, CEO of the Jewish Leadership Trust, who said that whilst this was an important gathering to remind the world of those hostages, there is nervousness amongst the British Jewish community.
The community are feeling very, very scared. We've seen at the last reading, a 1,370% increase in anti-Semitic attacks. It's absolutely unprecedented. So as much as we want to say that we stand here strong, united and resilient, we can't underestimate the fear that the Jewish community is feeling.
And whilst there is an anxiety, there is also a sense of defiance. Many people saying that I've spoken to today, it was important to come here, but some questioning why when yesterday's protest in support of Palestine was trailed earlier in the week, people here today who've gathered were only told because of security concerns a few hours ago where and when this event would take place.
Vincent in central London, many thanks indeed. 6 people have been killed after a missile strike on a post office in eastern Ukraine. 16 others were injured at the mail sorting facility in Kharkiv. President Zelensky condemned the attack as Russian terror against ordinary civilians. The Coast Guard and RNLI lifeboats are helping search for a man reported to have fallen overboard from a cruise ship off the Kent coast. The missing person is reported to be a crew member from the German vessel Ada Perla. And the Prime Minister's phone number has been published online in an embarrassing security breach. Rishi Sunak's personal mobile number was revealed after social media pranksters published audio of the phone ringing and the Prime Minister's voicemail message responding. Well, finally, it's nearly 24 hours since the death of England football legend Sir Bobby Charlton was announced, and tributes continue to pour in from sporting royalty and fans, young and old, with more. Here's Chris Gudder.
Sir Bobby Charlton's legend has long been celebrated at his spiritual home, and Manchester United fans gathered at Old Trafford today to mark the passing of the man who won all there was to win, a giant of the game in every way.
I mean, you know, he's the reason why, in my opinion, why this club exists and what it means to everybody and what it stands for.
Because he's a legend, isn't he? Bobby Charlton, you know, Munich survivor. Well, was the all-time leading goal scorer to Rooney, and it's just to pay him respect, really. I've never seen him play, but great stories from my dad, my granddad. So, yeah, just want to come pay him respect, really.
And it's not just the fans celebrating the legacy of one of the immortals of an iconic club. He touched all of those he worked with and even played against.
You know, I remember playing against him at Old Trafford for Leicester in one of my early days after taking over from Gordon Banks, and he hit a shot from just outside the box, and I thought, I can't let this in, and I managed to get across and just fingertip it round, and he ran across and he just gave me a royal smile and a wink, you know, as if to say, you shouldn't be doing that against me, you know. And he actually remembered that many, many years later on.
Great man, great person, always a great help to me, obviously during my time at Manchester United, and so still obviously in shock. It's a sad day for football.
He'll be remembered as England's greatest ever player, not just a World Cup winner, but an ambassador for the English game, respected around the world. Wembley will have the chance to pay its final respects at a special tribute to the great man before next month's Euro qualifier against Malta. Chris Scudder, ITV News.
Well, that's all for now. We are back with all the latest developments at 10. But for now, I do hope you have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Today we'll see